Earlier this week, Panthers quarterback and former number 1 overall pick Bryce Young was benched after an 0-2 start and combined 13 points through 2 games in 2024. Andy Dalton will get the start in his place this weekend, but it all comes on the heels of Young's lack of early success behind center in Carolina. Just 1.9% of his passes have resulted in touchdowns over 2 seasons. For context, that's worse than notable NFL bust Jamarcus Russell a few years back. But not time to panic yet. There's still plenty of time to resurrect his career, but taking a look here at the latest mock draft with our guys from the With the First Pick podcast, you'll see that the Panthers still own the 2025 first overall pick in the upcoming draft. They will use that in this mock draft to take Quinn Ewers over Carson Beck. Patriots, Broncos, Washington also in that mix. So let's bring in the fellas who created that mock draft and the hosts of the With the First Pick podcast, Rick Spielman and Ryan Wilson. Guys, this might be the earliest time I know that I can think of in my recent memory that we're already just skipping ahead to the end of the season when it comes to a team here. Obviously, the Panthers are in shambles, and that's no shade to Andy Dalton. It just feels like the trajectory of this season is kind of already over. So as you guys took a look at that mock draft, we saw Carson Beck going number 1 overall. Rick, just walk us through your thought process there of Quinn Ewers, I should say, going number 1 overall, and not Carson Beck.
Yeah, just as the way Bryce Young, and I don't think Bryce Young is done down in Carolina by any means, and I think he went into a really rough situation. It's on him a little bit because he does not make the throws necessary. We're not seeing the same things that we've seen in college coming out of him. He doesn't play with a lot of confidence. He's lacking that swagger, just like Ryan Wilson has that swag on today and that Paul Bunyan shirt that he has on, getting ready to go chop wood. But when we made this mock draft, okay, we based it off of how Quinn Ewers played against Michigan, and he was flawless in that Michigan game. I still believe that Carson Beck is going to end up the number 1 overall pick. But for argument's sake now, Haley, this is all etched in oatmeal. But based off what we saw early, now Quinn Ewers is hurt again, and durability is probably going to be a concern with most teams with him. But Quinn Ewers played excellent in the Michigan game. You've seen all the throws necessary he needed to make. He had great vision of the field, looked in command of the offense, played with that confidence that you're looking for in a quarterback. Almost unstoppable against a pretty good Michigan defense. So I think that's why we ended up with Quinn Ewers early. Again, etched in oatmeal, but we'll figure out where it goes as the season goes along.
Yeah, it was pretty fun to see the graphics of our top 5 quarterbacks there, Haley. I hadn't seen Rick's yet, but it was pretty close. And that tells you that the race for number 1 is wide open as we sit here. And as you point out rightly, we're in the middle of September already talking about who's going to get the first overall draft pick and take a quarterback here. So at the bottom, Garrett Nussmeier. Rick and I really like Garrett a lot. Rick is coming around on Cam Ward out of the U. One other thing I want to note, Haley, when we did that mock draft last week on With the First Pick, I made sure to give Rick the first pick, which we knew was the Panthers. I wanted to see if he was willing to go and think about a post-Bryce Young world. And this was before Bryce played that game over the weekend and got benched for the time being here. And Rick, to his credit, said, look, we need a quarterback. We talked about Quinn Ewers, how well he played in that Michigan game. And again, the race for number 1 is wide open, and it's going to be a lot of fun. There is no Caleb Williams. There is no Trevor Lawrence in this draft class as we sit here. And now the question becomes, who's going to be the Joe Burrow or the Jaden Daniels to come out of nowhere, or at least come out of the middle of the pack here in September, and by November, December, January, we're talking about them as the number 1 overall pick.
Let's talk about those quarterbacks, though, from the draft in this past cycle, because there was a lot of high hopes for all of those guys. I mean, we saw 6 go in the first round. But as you take a look here, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, the 3 starters, they have no touchdowns combined between the 3 of them. Rick, is this just, you cough it up to your rookie quarterback in a very difficult league that changes week to week here? Or are there some concerns with how high of a pedestal we put these quarterbacks on ahead of the season?
Haley, hold on to brakes. It's only week 2. Let him get a loop.
I'm just writing what was asked of me from the producer.
Okay, the producer's writing the script for you. Let's relax here. It's week 2. Let him give a chance to breathe and get warmed up a little bit. I think what they're finding out is because all of them look excellent during the preseason, but they're playing against JV-type players that aren't probably on rosters right now. They're seeing simplified coverages. They're not getting a lot of blitzes their way. And all of a sudden, the varsity comes out and there's game planning. So I think they have to get adjusted to the speed of the game. Jaden Daniels, to me, out of the 3 starters, has played the best. He seems to be in a little bit more rhythm with that offense. Caleb Williams is finding out you can't make those type of throws at the NFL level, but maybe you got away with at the collegiate level. And Bo Nix is just all over the place making poor decisions. So I think it'll improve as you go along, but they're finding out that it's a real deal and it's a different speed on the defensive side of the ball, and you can't just float the ball up there and expect to get away with the throws you got in college.
Yeah, Rick, and the thing we saw in that graphic, and when you look at the first and second-year quarterbacks, Haley, if we want to throw them in there, only 2 guys have yet to have a turnover. One guy named C.J. Stroud, who's one of the best players in the league in year 2, and Jaden Daniels we saw in that graphic. He hasn't scored a touchdown through the air. He's run for some, but I think that's the takeaway. You have to be able to protect the football, do the things that you're asked to do inside the offense, and all Cliff Kingsbury's been asking Jaden to do is to get the ball out quickly, screen games, quick game, use your legs, try to avoid taking big hits, and then occasionally push the ball down the field. And he's done all those things successfully. And it is interesting, and Rick talked about this on the podcast this week, Haley, that the offensive line in Washington isn't lights out. Their left tackle is a rookie, and he struggled a little bit. But we thought coming in that the situation in Chicago was best-case scenario for any quarterback, let alone the #1 overall pick. We haven't seen it yet work there. The offensive line had real issues against a really good Houston defense last week. And I think to Rick's point, they're going to get better. I don't have any concerns about Caleb. I don't have any concerns about Jaden, who, as we saw there, is completing 75% of his passes. They got to figure things out in Denver, however, because there are not a lot of playmakers around Bo Nix. He's being asked to throw the ball 40, 30 times a game and back-to-back weeks, and he's struggling, and understandably so, and they haven't yet got that running game going. So that's where I have the most concern. No concern about Jaden right now, and I think Caleb's going to improve as we get through this thing.
Listen, you guys know how this works. We have to ask these questions early in the season so that when they make those improvements later on down the season, we can talk about how the metamorphosis of that. Rick, did you want to add something?
Yeah, just real quick. We would have called Peyton Manning a bust after week 2 of his rookie season. So relax, people. There's a lot more time to go yet.
Yeah, definitely a lot of time for all of these guys, Bryce included. We talked about him as well. One quarterback that we haven't had a chance to see yet, though, guys, is Drake May. We know that Jacoby Brissett got the start, just for the Patriots there going forward. But obviously, Brissett has not been maybe the answer that they were wanting at that point. And at some point, you got to think you're going to want to put your franchise future quarterback in the mix. Ryan, at what point do you think we start to see Drake May into the season?
I hope we don't see him this year. And Jacoby Brissett is, you could argue he's been put out there as a sacrificial lamb. He's held his own. They could be 2-0 right now. They beat the Bengals in a game that no one saw coming in week 1. In week 2, they had a chance to win at home against the Seahawks. And now their offensive line is banged up even more. City So isn't going to play. Andrews was limited this week during practice. So Caden Wallace, who Rick and I talked about a lot out of Penn State last year as a right tackle, may have to start at left tackle as a rookie. And forget about playing left tackle in the NFL. Imagine being a rookie who hasn't played that side of the ball in a while, having to go out there in week 3. So I'm fine letting Drake May not play at all. They've run the ball 53% of the time, which is the 5th most in the NFL, and they're averaging over 175 yards a game, which is 4th most. Lean on the run, lean on Ramondre Stevenson. There's no reason to put Drake May out there in harm's way with a banged-up offensive line. But if you're going to press me on it, the bye week's in week 14. If the season's lost by then, play him the last month of the season. But Rick, for me, I would just sit him all year. There's no reason to put him out there, and you circle back next year and see where you are.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ryan. There's no reason to put him out there right now. I don't think they're going to be a playoff team. Jacoby Brissett at least has lined up and played. He's a functional game manager. He knows where to go with the ball. He's been in the system before, so he knows the answers to the test. If someone's blitzing out the left side, where the hot read is or where to go in the progressions. Drake May in the preseason probably outplayed him, but he doesn't have the same savvy at the position right now that Jacoby Brissett does. I think it would be a disaster to put that kid out there, and I don't think you would give him much of a chance to have success. But let's say the last 4 games of the season, their bye week's very late. If they're out of it and you want to get him some reps to get him going into next year, then put him in there. But hopefully they don't have to play him any sooner than that. And hopefully Jacoby Brissett stays healthy so he doesn't get forced to going into that lineup and trying to survive.
Yeah, that was the big question mark going into this season, was that Patriots O-line, but we'll just have to wait and see how it all works out. Our fellas from the With the First Pick podcast, Rick Spielman and Ryan Wilson. Guys, always such a pleasure talking ball with you. The work starts now for that upcoming NFL draft next April. That means you got to stay locked in with the fellas by scanning that QR code on your screen. They go through mock drafts as well as a redraft from the 2022 NFL draft a couple years ago. You'll want to hear their thoughts on that. Scan that QR code or listen in wherever you get your podcasts.